What's up? We are back here in Puerto Vallarta after being away for 11 months.
Yeah, we did not intend for that to happen, but needless to say, it's been kind of a crazy year with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Yes.
We were actually in Medellin, Colombia earlier this year when lockdown happened.
Yep. We arrived there in February, celebrated Carnival, and then COVID came and the lockdown in Medellin was actually really strict.
Yeah, we couldn't leave the apartment except to buy groceries about once a week, so we were really living that quarantine life. We actually have a video all about that if you want to check it out.
Yeah. So the only way to get out of Colombia was to take a humanitarian flight back to the States.
Yep, and there was only one option, Medellin to Fort Lauderdale, so we caught the third humanitarian flight out of Medellin, and then we just got in a rental car and made a beeline straight for Asheville, North Carolina. Why?
Because that's where my stepdad's house is, and we were able to go stay there and do the 14-day self-quarantine, and then we wound up living there for 3 months.
Yeah, so it was a tough decision, but probably the right one, and we actually ended up spending the entire summer in the U.S., a little bit of traveling, mostly playing outside and hanging out around the house, but we wanted to just catch you guys up on what it was like in life during quarantine time.
So, enjoy. As you can see, we had a lot more space in North Carolina than we did in Medellin. Quarantine life really wasn't so bad out here.
We did a lot of cooking at home and ate some delicious, healthy food. It was so nice just to be able to freely walk around after being stuck in a small apartment for weeks on end.
Porch sitting's a favorite pastime out here, whether playing guitar or just admiring the scenery, including some epic rainbows.
We didn't leave the property at all for 2 weeks, well, other than one socially distanced beer run.
It was weird being so close to Asheville but not going downtown at all. Instead, we focused on enjoying the great outdoors.
We had lots of fun on the French Broad River, going tubing and kayaking with friends and family.
As always, we checked out the street art and flew our drone snapping some cool shots.
When businesses started opening back up, we hit some of our favorite breweries that had outdoor seating. It was the first time having a beer outside of the house since mid-March.
We discovered some new places, such as Lake Powhatan. This little lake in the mountains is just a 20-minute drive from the house. There are a few hiking trails here and a little beach. It was definitely one of the best discoveries this summer.
I often went to Richmond Hill Park to play disc golf. I think I played more this year than I had since college.
Sometimes I'd tag along and just hike the trails, finding teepees along the way.
Being able to spend so much time outside made taking that humanitarian flight well worth it.
One of the best parts of our summer was cruising the Blue Ridge Parkway. We actually got up there several times this year and explored a bunch of new viewpoints and hiking trails.
We're working on a big video and post about the Blue Ridge Parkway, but for now, enjoy some highlights.
Double rainbow all the way.
And would you just look at that sunset?
We also spent a lot of time in my hometown of Johnson City. We finally climbed Buffalo Mountain, which you can see from my mom's living room window. I can't believe it took me so long to finally do it, but better late than never, right?
We'd often go downtown for our favorite combo, tacos and beers. Yeehaw.
One day, we went over to the Nolichucky River to hang out with some friends. There's actually a campground here with cabins as well.
Speaking of camping, we headed down to South Carolina over the 4th of July weekend to do just that. It was actually my first time in the Palmetto State.
We had lots of fun playing in the river during the day.
Then we cooked up an epic feast of mac and cheese and steaks.
My favorite. A nearby vineyard was the perfect place to settle in for a beautiful sunset.
We watched a mediocre fireworks display and a much better moonrise.
A major highlight of the summer was our 5-year anniversary trip to the Great Smoky Mountains. We rented a cabin on the Tennessee side for a few nights.
Thankfully, we visited Cades Cove on a car-free day and were able to enjoy an afternoon of cycling around this historical area.
We also went on a few hikes, checked out a swimming hole, and found an old schoolhouse.
Nights were spent at the cabin, cooking dinner, soaking in the hot tub, and enjoying the fire pit.
From there, we drove through the national park to the North Carolina side, stopping for a hike and a few viewpoints.
We stayed in Bryson City and found an awesome RV. It was our first time staying in one, and now we want our own.
There were mimosas and 5-year-old wedding cookies to celebrate.
Then we grabbed some tubes and headed to Deep Creek.
We also got caught in a rainstorm and checked out a bamboo forest.
After dinner in the RV, we headed to town for craft beers and sunset views. Before having a little campfire with friends.
We took the scenic way to Michigan, driving through the Cumberland Gap and stopping to take in the views.
From there, we traveled to Berea, Kentucky, where we went glamping yet again. This time on a farm and in a yurt.
We last stayed in a yurt 10 years ago in Inner Mongolia, so we were pretty excited. There are lots of hiking trails in the area, so we hit a few.
Then we went to the historic Boone Tavern for my fancy birthday dinner.
It was probably the best meal we had all summer.
Next up was a visit to my hometown of Detroit, where the first order of business is always a coney dog.
We showed a friend around some of our favorite spots in the D, such as the Heidelberg Project.
There were a couple of trips to Belle Isle, where I had so much fun flying my new DJI Mavic Air 2. Seriously, this drone is incredible. Just check out a few shots.
Take a look at that beautiful Detroit sunset.
My mom has a cottage up on Lake Huron, and we finally got to go visit.
I had a great time up there, just chilling in my Chilbo Baggins. We
enjoyed breakfast out on the porch, and then headed over to the lake for a swim. As we like to say in Michigan, great lakes, great times.
Some of Sasha's relatives had a place right on the lake for a few days with a stand-up paddleboard, so we went over there to hang out.
We also went over to the State Harbor for a little stroll and to fly the drone some more.
Back at the cottage, it was time for grillin' and chillin'.
Some friends invited us to go up north for a camping trip one weekend.
We pretty much only go camping for shows and festivals, so it was nice to go just for fun a few times this summer.
We headed over to the Pine River to do a bit of rafting.
We weren't exactly good at it, but it sure was fun.
I even did my best Jagger.
Back at camp, it was back in Chilbo. Then we cooked up a bunch of delicious kebabs to end the day.
We continued our pure Michigan adventure the next day by stopping in Ludington to take a dip in Lake Michigan.
Then we climbed up the Silver Lake sand dunes. It was tiring, but well worth it for those views.
Just when it looked like we'd go all summer without a show, Humphreys and McGee announced 2 drive-in shows in Chicago. We scored tickets for the first night of the socially distanced rock show and headed to the Windy City.
Next, we headed out to Colorado for a month. We joined some friends for a bit of scooting around the park.
Scoot team, assemble!
Then we rented a car and took off on a Colorado road trip. We made a quick stop in Central City and kept heading west. It was real hazy out due to the wildfires there.
And then, next thing you know, it was snowing on us at the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park.
Despite the inclement weather, we still enjoyed visiting the south rim of the canyon.
Thankfully, the weather cleared up the next day, so we hit the disc golf course for a quick round before going back to the park.
The north rim of the Black Canyon is way more rugged and less visited. We made the trek over there and started off with a hike. It's a bit freaky looking down.
We made it to most of the viewpoints and short trails at the north rim and barely saw any other people out there.
Back at our Airbnb, we rewarded ourselves with tacos and Bloody Marys.
For our third day of exploring the park, we headed down into the canyon to see the river up close. Then we went back to the south rim to see it on a much clearer day.
From there, we had a scenic drive that quickly turned into a snowy one. We weren't exactly excited for winter weather, but thankfully our next stop was a hot spring hotel.
We thoroughly enjoyed soaking in the hot water after a few big days of hiking.
The next day, we traveled to St. Elmo, a ghost town in the mountains. Once upon a time, it was a booming mining town.
It's actually one of the best preserved ghost towns in the state.
Our next stop was the small town of Crestone, where we lucked out with another awesome Airbnb.
When I noticed a place on the map called the UFO Watchtower, I knew we had to stop.
I wasn't so sure, but it was actually pretty cool.
Apparently, they've had over 200 UFO sightings here, and there's a garden of trinkets where you're encouraged to leave something behind for the extraterrestrials.
Back in the car, we headed to the Great Sand Dunes National Park. With just one day to spend there, we started out with a few short hikes.
Then we hit the dunes with our sand sleds for a bit of excitement. It was a tough climb that was rewarded with a smooth drinking beer.
It was fun going down, but we got sand everywhere. And I mean everywhere.
We wound down with some cocktails and dinner back at the house.
Before leaving town, we stopped at the Tibetan Buddhist Stupa in Crestone for a moment of zen.
Is this Colorado or Nepal?
The final stop of our journey was Bishop Castle. This epic castle in the mountains of Colorado has been built by one man over half a century. It really looks like something out of a fairy tale.
It's a bit treacherous climbing to the top, but it's well worth it.
And that's how our summer of 2020 came to a close, standing in an orb on top of a castle. It wasn't the summer we expected, but we still made the most of it.